Right, okay, this week is pie week. I've got a nice steak and Stilton, so it's a bit of a variation on a new standard steak pie, and that we're going to do that with a short crust pastry. So the first thing we need to do really is get the beef underway. It's going to take about an hour and a half to cook. So what I've done is I've coated this steak, in seasoned flour. Now when I say seasoned flour, just put a little pinch of salt and pepper in there, and I'm just coating that. Steak's nicely coated. Put a bit of oil. I'm going to let that get hot. Should hear a nice sizzle. I'm going to take a wooden spoon and then I'm just going to turn it gently, making sure that we're just browning on all sides so it's nice and sealed. While that's brown, I'm just going to get a bowl. I'm just going to get a bowl to put the meat in when it's browned off. Starting to colour. Okay, so my meat's nice and brown. I've got my pan here that's still got all the meat residue in it. I am not going to wash that pan. I need all that flavour going back into it. So what I'm going to do now, a little bit more oil in the bottom. I'm going to put in here onions, carrot, and a little bit of fresh thyme. And we're just going to deglaze that meat stock off the bottom. When I say deglaze, what we're doing is we're adding a liquid to remove the meat residue off the bottom of the pan. We're going to take all that meat residue off the bottom of the pan. So we're getting a really nice smell off that. Back in there now with our steak. This steak pie filling is going to do about 6 portions, or 4, depending how much you like steak pie. I've got some really nice chestnut mushrooms. This pie filling is going to take about an hour to an hour and a half for that steak to go tender. So now I'm going to cover the filling with stock. So when I say cover, you want to take it so it's just above your meat. Notice I've got a bit left. As that cooks and reduces, I might want to add a bit more stock to it to stop it from drying out. So we're just going to keep an eye on that, and we're going to allow that to cook now. Right, so our steak pie filling now, got a really nice rich gravy around that. It's not too dark, so you know that it's homemade. So you'll notice there's quite a lot of sauce on that. What I intend to do with this now is I want that. I'm just going to use the back of the ladle and dip it down into it. What that's going to do, it's going to allow me to siphon off the sauce without any of the filling. What that's going to do, it's giving me my gravy. So when my pie is done, if I want a bit of gravy going on it, I've got it here, it's done, it's all the same. It's going to tie it all in together. All I'm going to do with that is put that on a low heat, just to reduce that down. I've not added my Stilton yet. I'm not having the Stilton in my gravy. The reason I'm not adding the Stilton in my gravy is it's going to make it too salty and too rich. The gravy should be just cutting through. So now I'm going to put my Stilton in there. I'm going to take this rind off. I'm going to chop this. Just break it down. Doesn't need to be anything too smooth. There's not going to be lumps of cheese in there, so it doesn't matter. And we're just going to take this and we're just going to crumble it into our pie filling. So we're just going to crumble this in. We are going to need to let this chill so it doesn't spoil the pastry when we put it in. So in that pot now, I have got 700 grams of steak, I've got 200 grams of Stilton, I've got 2 pints of stock-ish, I've got about 80 to 100 grams of flour, I've got 300 grams of mushroom, a carrot, a potato and some sprigs of thyme. So pastry, nice simple pastry. I'm going to use half beef dripping and half butter for this one. You can use full butter or you can use a cooking fat margarine or something like that. In this I've got 450 grams of plain flour. I've got 100 grams of butter. I've diced that up so it's easier to work with and I've left it at room temperature. I've got 100 grams of the beef dripping that's going in there. I've got a pinch of salt. I'm using cracked salt because I like it, cracked pepper because I like it, and cracked salt. I just think it gives a better flavour. Now for this, we're using a technique called rubbing in. So for this technique is we're using our fingertips, like this, just to break down the fat and rub it into the flour. So we're going to break up the butter and the fat into little pieces first, with our fingers. And once it starts to go, it works pretty well. You notice I'm just using my fingertips. I'm not putting my full hand in there, I'm just using my fingertips. I'm going to change the way I do it, change my rubbing in method a little bit. So I'm going to turn my fingers, I'm going to do this. And I'm opening these fingers and I'm like this. I'm not like that, closed hands, because this is just going to roll the fat around on my hands. I'm opening my fingers and that's going to push the butter and the flour through the gaps in my fingers while breaking it down. So I'm just looking at trying to break, if I come across any bigger bumps or lumps, I'm just going to try and break them down a little bit with my fingertips again. And then I'm going to go back to rubbing in. Right, so that's our pastry. No massive lumps in there. The bits that are in there are just coated in flour, so that's good. What we're going to add to this, we're going to add about 6, maybe 7 tablespoons of cold water. And then we're just going to use our fingers. We're going to do it like this, so it's like a fork. And we're just going to take from the middle, and we're just going to rotate that round. I'm going to say it probably needs another couple of tablespoons of water, which is fine. So I'm binding it together now with that water. That's going to make a nice dough. So that's our pastry there, back in a bowl and in the fridge. We've got our pastry out of the fridge. It's nice and chilled. It's quite hard. I've split it into how many pies that I'm actually doing. So I've got my pastry here, pie tin that I'm going to do. I'm going to take about 1/3 of that off. So I've got a nice lid. Put my lid to one side. A little bit of flour, and we're just going to roll that out and turn. Roll it and turn. That's going in. I'm just going to use the back of my hand just to press that down. I'm just going to tease that top up like this and keep pressing, and then I'm going to use my thumbs just to work it into the corners of the pie tin. I'm going to take our filling. So this has got our Stilton in there. It's just starting to melt a little bit. Right, you're going to fill these up to about 3/4, and then we're going to put a lid on it and seal it. I'm just going to show you how we do this one, and then I'll get on with the rest. And we're just going to press that on the top like this and push it into the sides. Once you've got this pressed in, so take a sharp knife and we're going to come round the outside of the tin. So we're getting a nice finish. And we're just going to use our thumb just to press that in, just to create that seal. Little hole in the top. Egg wash in the oven. And then using that set of plastic. Right, so I've took our pies out of the oven now. This is our steak and Stilton pie, so finished product. I've just plated that up with a little bit of green